So as we mentioned, we're going more in depth on this story tonight. Joining me in studio to kick around this equal pay story is Shireen Ahmed. She's a sports activist and writer, and John Molinaro, a soccer journalist and author. Okay, I want to start with some numbers just to give people a sense of the big differences here between men and women's game. For instance, nearly 4 times as many people watch the Men's World Cup. The revenue for the men's game, 45 times greater. And the men's winning team in the next World Cup will get a lot more than the women did this year. And on the final note, Lionel Messi has a net worth 150 times greater than Alex Morgan, the U.S. Co-captain of the American team. So those are just some stark facts about what we are dealing with here. But let me start by asking you both the same question. Why are the women paid differently? John, you want to start?
Well, in terms of the U.S. Women's team,
yeah.
They negotiated a different CBA with the U.S. Soccer Federation.
CBA, a deal.
A collective bargaining
right.
agreement, yeah, with the U.S. Soccer Federation, which is, they have a base salary of $100,000, and then they have bonuses, but their bonus structure is a lot less than the U.S. The men's team, who don't have a base salary, but obviously their bonuses are quite higher. So the better that the men's team does,
right.
the more they earn. But the women will argue that they have to play far more games and be competitive for far longer to be on par money-wise with the men's.
So what is the equal pay then about? Getting the same as the men, pure and simple, because they're doing the same sport?
I think it's a little more complicated than that. It's not simply about the money. It's a lot about valuing the work that women are actually doing. If we're going to talk about revenue and we're going to talk about streams, the kit that the women have is the highest selling kit in the history of Nike sports in the United States. The most watched game in the United States for a long time was the 2015 World Cup final between Japan and the United States. So if we're talking about that, we're talking about money that the women actually make. $50.8 million between 2016 and 2018 was more than revenue generated by the men. So if you're going to ask me what that is, I'm going to tell you it's inequality and not actually valuing the equal work that women are doing that they deserve.
Right, okay, but globally, certainly men's soccer is a bigger revenue generator. So some people might say, if you are bringing in more money, you deserve to be paid more money. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I get that argument. What I would say is, with regards to FIFA, I mean, the pot for the Men's World Cup is $400 million, and $32 million of that went to the winners last year of France. You compare that to the entire pot for this year's Women's World Cup was $30 million. So the winning champion from last year won more sort of pool money than the entire sort of tournament.
Yeah.
If the men do, there's no doubt the Men's World Cup draws more revenue, more interest. I still think that disparity between the two sort of is way out of whack.
And is it because really this isn't just about them making money now, but this is about sort of structural sexism built into sport? I mean, is that what's really at issue?
Well, if you look at the history of what FIFA's done to grow and advance the women's game, it's not a whole lot, to be quite honest. And women get funded also from their federations under the umbrella. This is important to remember. I mean, we have to place the blame equally. But FIFA has not done what it needs to. The confederations don't hold them in the same regard. There's a lot of disparity in pay. There's a lot of disparity, not just in pay, with how much they train officials that are women, give opportunities, coaching opportunities to women, develop women's and youth programs, young girls. It's not across equal at all.
So it's about marketing, promotion, training, getting the whole system changing.
Well, exactly. If you want a world-class product, you have to invest in it. You can't expect the women who have already done mountains with like nothing to be able to keep giving you something if you don't invest in it.
Have you ever seen, John, a team mobilize around a policy issue, like take a stand on something like this? I know they did in 2015 unsuccessfully, but do you think that this is a turning point for them?
The only thing I can think of in recent times is the situation with Colin Kaepernick in the NFL, and sort of like, maybe not his entire team rallied around him, but certainly people, athletes from around the NFL and other leagues sort of rallied around him. I think this is, unique in that, it's a women's team at the forefront. It's the best women's team in the history of like women's soccer. The whole situation with Donald Trump, and they're sort of taking him on as well. I think they're in a unique place right now, and I think they're slowly kind of gaining public support because we're sort of in the era of women's empowerment and Me Too and everything. So I think that works all in their favor.
Globally speaking, there's a lot of precedent for doing this. The Argentine Women's Federation sued their employer. We saw the way Brazil was treating in Denmark. The women went on strike and actually missed the World Cup because they missed a qualifier. Ada Hegerberg actually skipped out on the World Cup in protest because she didn't feel that the Norwegian Federation was providing enough resources or strategizing enough to improve. So there's a lot of of precedent with women around the world. The Super Eagles of Nigeria actually staged a sit-in because they were due money that they didn't get from previous tournaments before. So there is a history of women rallying and actually resisting against this in women's football.
What about Canada? If this were to come to pass in the United States, I know it's not the same. We're not playing at the same level. We're not world champions. But would there be a case then for Canadian women players to say, hey, we deserve to be paid more as well?
It's a difficult one. I don't think the Canadian team is in sort of the same sort of leverage, you know, in terms of what the U.S. has, just because the U.S. is coming off 2 consecutive World Cups. You know, that might be something for them to think about. And they have had sort of pay disputes with, you know, Canada soccer before. But I'm not sure that they're in the same position as the U.S. to really sort of like make a go of it.
Do you think it will happen in the U.S. and then spur on other change?
I think the U.S. is setting an incredible precedent and they're inspiring movement or mobilization around the world. In regards to Canada, Canada actually has unionized the women's team and they've got a bargaining agreement. And Erin McLeod had said it's the best one that they've actually ever had. But that being said, it's important to keep in mind that there's different levels of this. Let's invest in the women's game, not just about equal play, but invest in the development. We are the only team in the top 10 FIFA ranking, and I'm speaking of Canada, that doesn't have a domestic women's league. So our women go and play in the United States or they play in Europe. You want to grow the game, it has to be in different ways.
Is this really just about the same fight, though, that women have through society about trying to get equal pay for equal work, fundamentally?
It's about respect. It's about valuing the work that women do. It's about social change in terms of understanding, getting the supports they need in terms of health benefits, maternity leave, all kinds of things. There's some teams that don't actually have full-time medics. They don't have full-time press. They don't have full-time photographers or whatnot. Like, these are basic things that men's teams don't have to think about.
I think she's absolutely right. It's about that sort of just basic respect, and this is how you get it. It's incrementally by, you know, each time taking a stand and making use of the power that you have. And I think, you know, in this era of social media and everything too, I think the U.S. has, you know, they've been great in terms of sort of the way they've leveraged their popularity and power and say, you know, we're not going to stay quiet about this, and we are going to sort of, you know, we're not just going to simply stick to sports. We're going to speak out about this.
It's fascinating to watch. Thank you both. I appreciate your perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you.